What's up, guys? It's currently 12 a.m. right now, and I figured I'd come on here and talk to you guys about my experience of having a business partner. Because a lot of the times people ask me questions of what it's like to have a business partner. So, for those of you that don't know, I was able to build a multi six figure marketing agency, and I started this back in 2020 with a business partner. So I was very fortunate enough to start this business venture with a business partner. Now, the first question that I always get when it comes to business partners is it possible to have your friends as business partners? And it is a little difficult, it's kind of tricky, but the bottom line is yes, it's possible. I've done it, I've seen multiple people do it, but you just got to understand that the dynamic of your friendship is going to have to change. Now, the reason why I say this is because with friendship, there's a lot of emotional tie into how your relationship is. When it comes to business, it really has to be very logical. If your friend is pissing you off from the business perspective, you can't bring that into the relationship as friends and vice versa. So you have to also develop a new level of respect from that other person. You have to understand that you now actually have to hold each other accountable, and it's not just letting each other slide just because they're the homies. You got to make sure that you're both going into this with the right mindset, with the same mindset and same level of conviction, same level of respect for this business, because otherwise, if it's even just 10% less or 10% more, it's not going to work out. That is quickly going to diminish, and personal things are going to happen, and it's not going to work out. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen. But yes, bottom line is it's possible, but you just have to reframe the framework of how everything is. Now, the other question is, do you need a business partner when you get into business? Now, it's kind of tricky, but the answer is no. You don't need a business partner. You see, most people start their businesses alone, and a lot of the times people go into it with a business partner just because they feel a little bit more comfortable not taking all the risk by themselves and just having another person just go into that journey with them. Now, I was fortunate enough, like I said, to get into business with somebody that I grew up with. We had our own little venture back in high school, and a few years later, we were able to rekindle and find ourselves going into business together. So, yes, that worked out on my end. So, it just happened that way, but I would be more than happy to get into business by myself. I mean, I'm in business by myself right now. I don't have any current business partners. With the business that I'm running right now, I do not have any business partners. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to get into business with other people, the biggest lessons that I've learned is that number one, you cannot have the same skill set. Because if you have the same skill set, then it just becomes a hangout session of you guys just like stroking each other's ego, talking about everything that you guys can relate to. And also, the reason why this doesn't work out is because you guys are going to constantly butt heads. If you both bring in the same skill set, same superpower, you guys are going to clash. It's going to be inevitable. Also, on top of that, it doesn't make sense that both of you guys or three of you guys have the same skill set, because then it's not covering any other bases. If you guys have the same skill set, more than likely, you guys will also share the same weaknesses. And so when I got into business with my previous business partner, in the beginning, we had the same passion. So we shared very similar skill set with filming, editing, graphic design. We had very similar skill set. But the moment I realized that, I knew that something had to change, because now I was realizing that because we had the same skill set, egos would get in the way. I would think that I was editing the video better. He would think that he was editing the video better, right? And so a lot of the times it would just clash. And because of that, like I said before, your weaknesses are not being covered. So when I discovered that we shared very similar skill set, I had to change. So the dynamic had to change. I decided that I was going to really lean into marketing and sales. And because my business partner was a lot better with production, he leaned into the operation side of things. And so the way the dynamic worked out is I handled all the marketing and sales, and I just brought in the clients and he took care of the clients, right? Because if we shared the same skill set, then it wouldn't have been possible for us to scale it to multi six figures. So, yeah, make sure when you're getting into business with somebody, you guys have different skill set. Because the most important thing is I was able to cover my business partner's weaknesses and he was able to cover my weaknesses. And because of that, we were well rounded together. We didn't really have a lot of gray areas. I was able to cover his back when it comes to sales. He was able to cover my back when it came to operations. So the dynamic worked very, very well. Another thing about having a business partner is that you have to really understand each other. You have to have the same vision, the same mission, and almost share the same pain points, like the same pain. Because if it's not that way, if you guys don't share the same vision, if you guys don't share the same pain that you're going through, it's a lot easier for one person to take it easier and the other person to go really, really hard. And when the dynamic isn't equal, then it becomes a big problem. Now, I've acknowledged this. When I was starting the business, I had a full-time job. I was a sales guy. I was selling cell phone, I was selling internet plans, and I was lucky enough where my business partner didn't have a job. He was like, David, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna go all in into this business. And to me, I was like, yo, I'm all in as well. I'm all in, but I told him that my expenses are a lot higher. So, I have a car payment, I have an apartment to pay for, I got insurance, I got all these things I got to pay for. So I have to have a job. And he was like, yo, cool, man. Do what you got to do. You have your overhead expense to live. I don't have that much. And so it worked out. But one thing I realized is that as I was going into work every single day, spending 8 hours, 9 hours working on my 9 to 5 job, I felt like the dynamic was unfair. I knew that he was putting in more than I was. And to me, I didn't like that. And that is why I had to quit my job. I told him there was one day I gave him a call. This was on my birthday about 3 years ago. And I gave him a call and I told him, hey, listen, bro, I know you're on a trip right now with your family, but I'm really thinking of quitting my job. I just need to be able to cover my my rent and I think I'll be good. And he tells me, all right, David, yo, I really like that idea. Perhaps we can have a conversation when when I get back from my trip. And I told him, sure, no problem. And then I go for an hour walk. So it's during my birthday. And I told myself, all right, what do I see myself not doing this year? And one of those things was not working a 9 to 5. And that is why I was like, if I don't see myself working a 9 to 5 job this year, why do I have to wait 5, 6 months for that to happen? If I know exactly that that's going to be my absolute truth this year, why not do it now? So the next day I quit my job and then I give him a call and I'm like, yo, bro, guess what? He was like, what? I just quit my job. And I was like, what? So it didn't make any sense. But the thing is, I felt good. Now I knew that I can put in the 100%, right? Because even though I was telling myself that I was giving my 100%, it was all BS. It was all BS because there's no way I was able to give my 100% if I was spending 8 to 10 hours a day at my normal day job while my business partner was handling all the operation. I wasn't bringing in the clientels that we needed. I wasn't marketing the business the way that I needed to. And so the moment I was able to acknowledge that I wasn't giving it my all. I quit my job and then I went all in. And that year, when I went all in, we made over six figures. I was able to challenge myself to make $100,000 in 100 days, all documented. It was a public challenge. And the crazy thing about that is that I was able to do it. We were able to do it in just 63 days. That was the power of going all in. That was the power of understanding that the dynamic wasn't even and I needed to balance it. It was tough. Don't get me wrong. It was very, very tough. But I knew that I wasn't doing my part and I knew that I had to step up and do the right thing, right? So, yeah, going back to what I was saying is that if you're going to go into partnership with somebody, you got to make sure that you guys share the same conviction. You guys share the same vision. You guys share the same pain, right? You have to be okay with your partner kind of, okay, let me tell you how my business relationship worked. And this is why it works so well is that my partner and I shared the same pain, and that was a lot of financial stress, right? There would be moments where I would need to cover some things and he would need to cover some things. And even though we kind of had like a salary, but there would be times where I'm like, yo, bro, I really need to buy dog food. Or he'd be like, yo, bro, my car just broke down. We were okay. We understood each other's pain to a point where we're like, yo, bro, listen, take the money. I know you need this. Take care of yourself. Boom, boom. And so there was no clashing each other's heads because we understood each other's pain, right? Because if I needed an extra $100 to feed my dog and he didn't understand that and he said, no, you can't, you can't take money away from the business, then it would have been a shit show. I would have, you know, would have created resentment. And so you got to understand when you get into a business partnership with someone, you understand their background, you understand their pain, you got to understand why they're doing it, and you got to understand everything so you can see if there is an alignment. Because the worst thing you want to do is get really deep into business and all of a sudden you don't really understand your business partner, and now they need something and you can't see eye to eye with each other, and it just becomes a shit show, right? So yeah, that's overall like my experience with having a business partner. And I've had business ventures where there were other partners and it didn't work out, and the reason why it didn't work out, great people, is just that it just didn't work out in terms of personality, I guess. You got to make sure that you can tolerate your business partners, because these are the people that are going to know you the most. You will probably, especially if you're strapping everything from boots to the ground, boots when you're bootstrapping everything, you're probably gonna see your business partner more than your family, more than your girlfriend, more than your boyfriend, more than your friends. So it's very imperative that you understand each other. It's very imperative that you can see eye to eye. It's got to be imperative that you guys somewhat share the belief systems, because if you guys are not in alignment, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. It's going to tarnish your personal relationship, and because of that, it's not going to end well with the business. So yeah, got to make sure that there is some level of alignment. You got to make sure that your business partner is also bringing in an equal amount of value. Now, obviously, in the higher leagues of business, which I haven't been to, a lot of the times people get into business partnership not because they have a skill set, but because they have the capital. A lot of the times people will get into business partnership because they can bring in, $100,000 as an upfront investment, and in exchange for that, they get 25%, 50% of the company, whatever that dynamic is. So I've never really done any business partnership like that, so I can't really speak on that. But you want to make sure that when you get into business with somebody, that they share the same equal value as you. You can't be the one that's lifting 80% of the weight or vice versa. You got to make sure that it's even, right? And of course, when you start a business with somebody, you guys probably share similar interests, similar love to this new business venture, but like I said, going back to my first point, you gotta make sure that you guys have different skill set. You do not want to have the same skill set. You're gonna be crashing heads. You want to make sure that your skill set and his skill set can cover your weakness and can cover his weakness, right? It's got to be a good dichotomy. Is that a right word? I feel smart using that word. Dichotomy. Dichotomy. Dichotomy meaning a division or contrast between two things that are or personas being opposed. Yep. Kind of makes sense, man. Kind of makes sense. Ooh, okay. I've been yapping for 16 minutes. I could go on forever. No, I can't. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you guys because a lot of you young entrepreneurs who are just starting, a lot of you guys want to get into business ventures with your friends and you're unsure. The one thing that I will say is you got to make sure that everybody can see the vision, the long-term vision. Because if you want to take a business to $1 million a year and your business partner wants to bring it to $1 million a month, that's such a big gap. That's such a big difference. And that's just going to be, you got to make sure that everything is in alignment. You got to make sure, understand each other's pains, understand each other on a deeper level, understand where you both want to take this, because this is what's going to happen when you don't cover those bases. Now, obviously, in the beginning, I didn't know all these things, and I learned as I went, but it's been 5 years, almost closing into 6 years since I got into business. So I have these lessons and experience that I can share with you guys. So yeah, and watch out for people. You gotta watch out for people who like the idea of running a business more than actually running the business. Because a lot of people will want to get into business with you just because they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to be a business owner, but they don't actually bring in any value to the business. They don't actually have any conviction. They don't actually have the work ethic to get into business or to be in business. But a lot of the times you'll get these people, they see that you're in motion, they see that you're valuable, that you have a skill set and that you have this big vision. A lot of people want to piggyback off of that. So you got to make sure that you protect your energy, because that's a trap, right? A lot of people are really good at talking. A lot of people are really good at injecting themselves into your business. But before you do that, don't feel bad of saying no, especially with your friends or family. If they want to get into business with you, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, right? And if you do say yes, it's also okay to not give them an equal share amount. If you're going to be doing majority of the work, it doesn't make sense to go 50-50, right? So understand that you got to make these terms and it's okay to say no. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me for the last 18 minutes, close to 19 now. And I like making these videos. As many of you guys know, I'm really trying to work on my communication skills. And so making these videos is a great practice for myself. But not only that, I hopefully bring in a lot of value to you guys. But anyway, I don't want to take too much of your time. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you listening. And most importantly, thank you for trying. Peace.